This is a juicy one, you guys. Chaturanga, wrists 90 degrees or no? So when you're lowering down from plank to chaturanga, how far forward do you move your body? Do you need to get your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder at 90 degrees? Why or why not? What gives? So in this video, we're gonna look at exactly what should be happening between your shoulder, your elbow, and your wrist in chaturanga, and why you might or might not make adaptations. Okay, everybody, so first of all, let me clarify. We are talking about a transition here from plank to chaturanga. Now, in the olden days of yoga, we used to say, I was taught to really reach my chest forward and lower down so that I got this angle. Let me show you what I mean. So, some of you might remember this. You know, you're in your plank pose, right? And they say shift forward, lower halfway down, and so that you're at a 90-degree angle. Oh, can you guys see that? 90 degrees. Now, what that means, I'm going to do this without doing plank to show you. What that means here is that my wrist is at a 90-degree angle. My elbow is at a 90-degree angle, or almost, right? And my body is in one line. So why do they do that? Well, when I asked my teacher in one of the teacher trainings, they said, well, you're preparing your wrist here by coming forward so much to do hand balances. You know, stuff like Bakasana, where your arms forward, Tadibasana, where your arms forward. Okay, all right, all well and good. But I have to say, for me, the pros don't outweigh the cons on this particular one. So where I've come to over time with this particular transition is actually to not put my wrist at 90 degrees. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to keep my knees down just because this is hard, but you'll get the idea. All right, so here I am. Da, 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 da. So instead of reaching super forward and making that 90-degree angle, instead, I'm going to reach my chest a little forward, and watch the difference. My elbows are now behind my wrists rather than right over them, right? So the reason that I like this version is a few-fold. One is that I have more connection to the big muscles of my chest to support my body weight. I'm not sort of hanging out in oblivion over a cliff out in front of myself. That's reason number one that I like this. A little bit more integrity, a little bit more core strength here that I can recruit. Two, it doesn't force my wrists into 90 degrees of extension. It's extension of the wrist, everybody. It doesn't force my wrist into that. So folks who may have less mobility in their wrists or wrist issues aren't going to have to crank on that joint and potentially create compression. Number three, there is a third reason that I like this. It makes the transition into up dog easier because there's less distance to accommodate for. Let me show you what I mean. If I'm coming down and really reaching my chest so far forward to create that 90-degree angle, like here, look how far forward I am on my toes. That means when I push into up dog, my shoulders are forward of my wrists. That is not a very good relationship for these things. In up dog, we don't want the shoulders forward of the wrist, we want the shoulders over the wrist. So if I don't move my body forward as much, right? Say I bring my chest down, my collarbone just in front of my toes, then when I come up, my shoulders are more over my wrists. A better relationship for my back, less adjusting and futzing that I have to do with my feet to try to get that nice relationship and the stacking of the joints. So for those three, I guess fourth reason, it's more accessible. It's just easier to do, to have a little bit more containment and keep myself here rather than trying to reach myself way far forward. So, sure, if I'm modifying it, or if I'm keeping myself a little bit more tucked in and not reaching my chest as far forward, sure, I'm not getting that crazy, I always have to remind myself, extension of my wrists. But really, there are other places we can do that. And we do this transition so much in the yoga practice that I think it's important to do a version of it that's functional. So, for all these reasons, a little bit more muscular support, easier on your wrists, makes a better transition into upward facing dog, and a little easier and more accessible for people to do, generally speaking. For all those reasons, I'm going to say yes to putting your chest just in front of your hands and no to the big 90-degree old school way of doing things. One other reason is that when we do the old school way of going forward, I feel like the shoulders tend to drop forward more. If I'm coming way forward here, it's just, I'm not as supported through the front of my shoulder joint. Whereas here, I can keep my shoulders back a little bit more because I'm using these big muscles. So for the health of the shoulder joint too, I think that, bringing your chest a little forward rather than a lot forward is the way to go. There you go, everybody. Those are the two different kinds of plank to chaturanga transitions that often we see, and why I'm not personally an advocate for reaching your chest way forward anymore to get this, kind of like aesthetic 90-degree angle. Nah, keep your chest a little bit closer. Keep your hands a little bit closer to you, underneath your chest and your breastbone in order to get a little bit more support and make the transition more accessible and I think more functional. So that's enough for now. Put your comments in the thread below. I'd love to hear from you. Love it, hate it, all of the above, suggestions you may have. Subscribe for more tips. Follow me on Instagram. Say hi. Love to connect with you guys. And I'll see you on the mat.